My point is that with all of this, it happens through language. Why should you master a language? Because you can only think in a language that you've mastered. Why do we do this whole thing? Because of that. And also, and if it's for no other reason, because your language is the vehicle through which you enter the world. All of your thoughts, your actions, your experiences, who you are, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and more than anything, how you connect with people has everything to do with how well you use language. It's tempting to just fall back and say things like, they understand. Do they really? We already said earlier, some people don't want to understand. Some people can't understand. Some people want to believe the worst in what it is that you're saying. Some people want to catch you out saying the wrong thing. Some people are just distracted and they're only catching every third or fourth word anyway. So what do? You speak as clearly as possible, as directly as possible. What if they can't understand? Well, then you have access to analogies, metaphors, figurative language. That's the point of figurative language. It's not just to sound nice. It's so that you can understand something that you couldn't understand any other way because you don't have that experience. Maybe you've never lost $1 million, but maybe you lost 10. Maybe you've never lost a parent, but you've lost an uncle. Maybe you've never, I don't know, man, maybe you've never been in love, but you've had a really good sandwich. And so you use these analogies as a way of trying to connect to people who've never had the experiences that you had so that you can help them to value your experiences. Because if they can value your experiences, they can value you as a person. What's the point of language? To be valued as a person for what you really are. Not what people say about you, not what people interpret about you, but for what you actually are. We see the world the way that we are. You don't see the world the way that it is. When you see something bright in the world, there's probably something bright in you that was willing to receive it, ready to receive it. As dark as you might feel right now, if you see some little tiny bit of hope, that's great because you can't receive it unless it's in you to be received. It's almost like, have you ever lost $1 million? No. Actually, I lose $1 million all the time. Anybody ever play the lottery? Every time you play the lottery, you either win or you lose, right? So if the jackpot's $100 million and you don't win, you just lost $100 million. Every single week you can lose $100 million. It's not quite the same, I guess, because you never had it. But if I were to ask you, have you ever lost $1 million before? No. Have you ever lost 10 bucks? Yeah, it's like that, but a lot more. You can kind of go, oh, I can imagine what that's like, but it's not quite the same. So kind of like that, like maybe you've lost another family member. Maybe you've lost an uncle. And so you're thinking, it's kind of like that, but a little bit closer even. Or maybe you're even closer with your uncle. Maybe you've lost a really close friend before. And so you kind of start to imagine what that's like. So you haven't lost a parent, it's not quite the same. But you can kind of get an approximation of what that might be like. Okay. And so the way, and by the way, you're going to notice how it is that we're trying to explain this. We're using analogies and metaphors, because that's how it is that we can help people to understand things that they otherwise have never experienced before. We'll use similes. We'll say, it's kind of like this. It's like if you lost an uncle. I genuinely heard this before from somebody. They said that a friend of ours had lost a child before, and they were saying, I don't know exactly what it's like, but I had a cat I was really close with once. It's like, okay, there might be a bit different, just a little bit difference between losing a child and losing a cat that you like a lot. Yeah. And I even hear that on this side. People will say, I don't have any children, but I'm a dog dad. It's like, it's not quite the same. Like where's your dog right now? Probably sleeping on your bed, puking in your hallway or something like that. Whereas if you had a child, your whole world has to revolve around that. I have to get home, I have to leave here by a certain time to pick them up, to take them home, to do this and to do that. But we do the best that we can, if this makes sense. Now the problem is when the best that you can is so far outside the experience of other people. So what can you do if what you're trying to what can you do if what you're going through is so outside the realm of the experience of people around you? Well, you have a couple choices. You could, they're not going to understand. I'm not even going to try to explain it. They're not going to understand. Or you could try to explain it. But that can be frustrating because you've got those two things going on. You've got the speaker and the hearer. I guess I ask this question. Why do we do this whole language arts thing? We're in here 5 hours a week, 16 weeks. Do the math on it. We're in here a lot of time. Multiply that by 12 years. You've done a lot of language arts stuff. Why? Is it because you're going to have to decode poetry in real life? And you guys have family members who are sitting there like at the DMV like, damn, if I just understood Shakespeare, I could make sense of this test. And anybody's ever, I don't know, been in an airplane cockpit with the pilot, and like he's sitting there just trying to like figure out a poem so he can land this plane? No. So it begs the question, then why? Because if you don't have a reason for it, then it doesn't really arrest your attention. Maybe you have an interest in it, but unless you see like a real need for it, it's not going to arrest your attention and you're not going to develop it. And I would suggest to you that, and I really literally mean this, just about every subject that you encounter in school, there is a deep need for it. Whether you realize the need for it or not is completely different. But that there is a need for it is just demonstrated by the fact that the subject exists. If we didn't need chemistry, chemistry wouldn't even exist. If we didn't need engineering, it wouldn't exist. And if we didn't need language arts, it simply wouldn't exist. So a good thing to do when you're in classes, in fact, when you're anywhere in life, is to step back and ask yourself, what is the need for this? Why does this exist? Now, I remember when I was telling a story yesterday that when I was a little kid, my mom raised me very, very, very interestingly. I've never seen anything like it before. An example would be if I was on a scholarship one year to a private school when I was like in 4th grade, and the following year they were saying they were going to implement school uniforms. They didn't have them when I was there, but the following year they were going to have them. And I remember saying to my mom, "Oh my God, it's so stupid. I don't even know why they want us to have school uniforms." I was like in 4th grade, so however old that is, minus a year or two, is how old I was. And my mom, I remember saying, "Well, that's a good question. Why do you have to have them?" I mean, I don't know. And my mom would say, "We just called it stupid. So here's your job." And my mom gave me the task to go find out why we had to have school uniforms. And I couldn't just go ask my teacher. I had to go ask my teacher. She made me go ask the principal. And so when I came back the next day, and I did do it because my mom was very much like that, like, go find out, and if you don't, I'm going to beat your ass. So I got these two sides of both worlds. I remember one of my favorite stories about my mom today, wasn't my favorite story at the time, was I was walking home one day from school, and it's a long story, but I got jumped. It's like 14 guys. And I was just walking down the street, and one of them just kind of came around and just said, like, you don't belong around here. And I said, "Yeah, I do. I live right over there," because I've always been a smartass my whole life. So I get into a fight with this dude, and then 3 of his friends jump in, and as I go to turn, one of them has like a baseball bat, and he comes running up to hit me with the baseball bat. And this wasn't like gonna hit me in the arm; he was trying to hit me in the head. And as I turned, I covered up my head like this, and he ended up hitting me in the back. And then I ran as fast as I could. And I was pissing blood for like a week because he hit me in the kidney with it. And I remember when I got home, my face is scratched up and everything beaten up. And I told my mom what happened, and she asked me, "So what are you gonna do tomorrow? Because you're going to school tomorrow. What are you gonna do?" And I told my mom, I think I'm gonna walk around the block tomorrow. It's a smart thing to do. And my mom told me, "If you walk around the block tomorrow, you'll be walking around the block the rest of your life." My mom was from Brooklyn, so the next day I'm walking back with my jacked up face. I was trying to like prep myself like, well, it can't get any worse. I'm just gonna add scratches to scratches. And then the next day, the dudes were outside again, ran mouths back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And then over the course of the next couple of weeks, everything just kind of stopped, So that's the kind of, so I say, if I didn't go find out, I would get my ass beat. Yeah, she really was going to. So I would go ask the principal, ask teachers, ask people, why do we have to have school uniforms next year? And they explained it. Student performance, it reduces student anxiety of having to figure out what to wear, a whole bunch of reasons. Now, did I want them, was I now in favor of school uniforms? No, because I was in 4th grade. I didn't want to wear what they wanted me to wear. I wanted to wear what I wanted to wear. But I could tell you why they wanted me to wear school uniforms. You follow? And this is part of the problem with communication, is that we think it's taken place when it really hasn't. We think like, they want us to have school uniforms. I don't even know why. Well, you go find out. You have to understand why. Now, you could just say, well, I don't want to understand why. Okay, but understand what you're doing. You're acknowledging and you're accepting and you're even indulging in ignorance. Is there a value in uniforms? Yes, there is. Does that mean that you should wear them? That's up for debate, man. Does the value outweigh everything else? I don't know. That's where debate and dialogue happens. My point is that with all of this, it happens through language. Why should you master a language? Because you can only think in a language that you've mastered. Why do we do this whole thing? Because of that. And also, if it's for no other reason. Oh, and by the way, every subject you study is going to be in a language. So how about that? The better you understand your language, the better you can understand chemistry, the better you can understand architecture, the better you can understand every other subject. And if those aren't convincing enough, why study these language arts things? Because your language is the vehicle through which you enter the world. All of your thoughts, your actions, your experiences, who you are, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and more than anything, how you connect with people has everything to do with how well you use language. Now, it's tempting to just fall back and say things like, they understand. Do they really? We already said earlier, some people don't want to understand. Some people can't understand. Some people want to believe the worst in what it is that you're saying. Some people want to catch you out saying the wrong thing. Some people are just distracted and they're only catching every 3rd or 4th word anyway. There's a lot that can go wrong from the hearer. So what do? You speak as clearly as possible, as directly as possible. What if they can't understand? Well, then you have access to analogies, metaphors, figurative language. That's the point of figurative language. It's not just to sound nice. It's so that you can understand something that you couldn't understand any other way because you don't have that experience. Maybe you've never lost $1 million. Maybe you've lost 10. Maybe you've never lost a parent, but you've lost an uncle. Maybe you've never, I don't know, man. Maybe you've never been in love, but you've had a really good sandwich. And so you use these analogies as a way of trying to connect to people who've never had the experiences that you had so that you can help them to value your experiences. Because if they can value your experiences, they can value you as a person. What's the point of language? To be valued as a person for what you really are. Not what people say about you, not what people interpret about you, but for what you actually are. Because when you speak, and I really mean this, and this took me a long time to really get my head around. If you get your head around this, you're going to be way years ahead of me anyway. When you actually speak, you change the physical structure of the universe. Literally. When you speak, sounds exit your mouth. They enter the universe, and they reverberate forever throughout the universe. You literally change the universe when you speak. And what are you except the things that you say? Your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences, all of this stuff. All that is the stuff that you say is just a reflection of all of that. And so when you speak in this way, you literally enter the universe. If you have an idea that you never share, that means you never entered the universe. You may as well have never been born. You have an idea, a thought, an opinion, a viewpoint that you never express or share. Not only does that stop you from connecting to other people, not only does it stop you from building up other people, because we're all built up by the ideas of the people around us. If you've had an experience, why do I like to to read like your letters of introduction? Why do I like to read your journals? Because I don't know how much life I have, man. I'm 44 right now. Do I have 45 years? I don't know. Do I have 30 seconds? I don't know. Do I have another 90 years? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that one lifetime is not enough. I don't care if you live to be 100, 200 years old. One lifetime is not enough to do all of the things, at least for myself, everything I want to do. And so why do we study this language arts thing? Another big reason for it is because one lifetime is not enough. Some of you have shared some things with me in your letters of introduction, and I got to live a little bit of your life, and a little bit of somebody else's life, and a little bit of somebody else's life, and so on. I've lived Nietzsche's life because I've read his stuff. I know where he's coming from. I know his experiences. I didn't have to live to be 50 years old to understand, to live Nietzsche's life. I don't have to be 65 years old to live Jung's life. But man, I have lived thousands and thousands and thousands of years beyond what my actual 44 years is. Why? Because of language, man. Because of language. When I come and talk to you guys, it isn't from my 44 years of existence. It's from the thousands of years of existence of the people I bring to you and who talk to you through me because they've influenced me. I'm not taking their ideas, but they shape mine, which I then come in and go, bah. Life is suffering. You don't get to choose not to suffer. Choose what you suffer for. You don't know what you don't know. Make sure the modes of entertainment aren't the things that hinder your intellect. Blah, 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 blah. All of the things I tell you. Because of language. Now, the question is, what do you hear? Every 10th word. Your own thoughts, wondering, is he still talking? Do you hear the worst thing possible? Are you that person who's in one of my classes right now who is trying to get me fired? He's a 10th grade, doesn't matter. Yeah. Why? Because he's failing. It happens all the time. You get at least one a year. What do you hear? Well, what you hear has everything to do with you, because none of us sees the world the way that we are. We see the world the way that we are. You don't see the world the way that it is. When you see something bright in the world, there's probably something bright in you that was willing to receive it, ready to receive it. As dark as you might feel right now, if you see some little tiny bit of hope, that's great, because you can't receive it unless it's in you to be received. The student doesn't show up until the master doesn't show up until the student is ready. You can't see something bright until you're ready to receive it. And as dark as things might seem, man, that gives you a little bit of a glimmer of hope. And it all comes through ideas, language. So if for nothing else, I've given you a bunch of reasons, but at the very last, I'll leave you with this, so that you can be heard for who you really are. And if you can be heard for who you really are, maybe you can connect with other people for who you guys really are. Not for who you're pretending to be, not for this persona, not for this mask, but for who you really, really are. So maybe that's what language is. It's the attempt to express miracles. So, questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday.